Welcome to the Maintenance Community Podcast, a podcast for people who want to learn all things about maintenance and reliability. I'm your host, Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Upkeep. Each week, I'll be meeting with an expert within the maintenance community to take a deep dive into topics sourced from our maintenance community Slack group. And today, I'm super excited to have Sarah Lukens here on the show. Sarah is a PhD from math from Tulane University and has worked as a data scientist at GE over the last 6 years, during which she developed different ways to extract information from maintenance data using machine learning and natural language processing. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah. I'm super excited to learn from you.
Thanks.
The way that we always kick this podcast off, Sarah, is to have you share a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you were first introduced to this wonderful field of maintenance and reliability.
I came from an academic math background. I was doing data-driven modeling with infectious disease data. I got hired right around when the data science boom began. I guess I was doing data science for years and didn't know it. And they had, a lot of their customers all use CMMS data and other data sources that they were trying to, develop ways that customers could use their data better in their, businesses. I was hired to be that person. The mentors that I had at Meridium were phenomenal, really deep subject matter experts, lot of large visions. And then later in 2016, we were acquired by GE Digital.
Wow, what an interesting path, obviously starting in the biopharma route and then getting into the maintenance reliability industry. It seems like you've loved this industry enough to stick in it for the last 6+ years. So maybe we could kick off, Sarah, by, obviously like data science is kind of like this big word that I feel like it's probably overused and probably some applications that it's not truly data science. What is data science to you, and how do you apply data science to this industry of maintenance reliability on a day-to-day basis?
So data science to me, it's because it's such a blanket term. There's so much it could mean, but fundamentally to me, it's about, I see a bridge. There's a bridge between business problems and data. And there's a bunch of tools that can be used to make these two things, data, business problems connect. And those tools can be in software infrastructure, analytics platforms, to algorithms, machine learning, statistics toolboxes, so all that stuff. And so you see, some data scientists who may be more technical, may be more focused on the technical components of that, but it's still a bridge. And understanding, what you can and can't do with the data and what problems you have and how to really bridge the two in ways. My area of expertise is, maintenance and reliability data, such as from the CMMS or from time series data, and asset performance management type business problems, which are related to a lot of reliability and things like identifying opportunities for where to make strategic initiatives toward cutting maintenance costs, improving downtime situations, maintenance strategies type stuff, predictive maintenance analytics, such as monitoring asset health.
Obviously you've dedicated a big portion of your career towards data science in this maintenance reliability industry. Obviously we've come a very, very long way, I'm guessing, over the last 6 years plus. What are you most excited about in terms of trends around data science within maintenance and reliability for our future?
I'm excited about a lot of things. Anyone who starts getting dirty in maintenance work order data from the CMMS starts noticing is that there's a lot of data quality problems with miscoded data, missing codes, especially missing codes that people most want to have values for to use the data. And every time you start to look at data, inevitably you start reading description fields. Always. Anytime you just start reading the description fields, going, yeah, I replaced this broke. What someone wrote. And it soon became pretty clear to me that the way that this historical data was really going to be fully leveraged and utilized in business processes is to come up with devise ways that could leverage these description fields in ways that made sense. So I've been working in that area for years. A lot of people agreed with me. And most excitingly, in the past couple of years, I've been formally collaborating with university and academia. So university being University of Western Australia in Perth, and government NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And we've proposed in the past calling it a special subfield called technical language processing, which is uses tools from natural language processing, but more specific to technical language. And so formalizing the needs for having a subfield means that we can then start to actually develop tools that move forward for technical language. And that's really exciting to me because we need to stop taking a bunch of data and shoving it in out of the box stuff we download off the internet instead of coming up with formal solutions that are tailored for industry needs. You can think of it this, it's digital because it's in your computer, but it's not machine readable. These tools that can make it machine readable is because it's sitting there. Like think about the hundreds and millions of work orders that are quote underutilized because all this data is being stored somewhere and it can't be used in business processes.
Yeah.
And it's not even just maintenance work orders, procedures, operator logs, inspections, equipment descriptions, traceability data in manufacturing. It's abundant, and having a formal framework of ways to use this data and inject it in business processes, I really see in the next 10 years, it's going to be going from nice to have to need to have for a lot of these industrial businesses to retain a competitive edge.
I mean, one of the reasons why I think this is so fascinating to me is because the idea of using, let's call it natural language processing on work order descriptions is very like retroactive, right? And it seems like, well, one way to perceive this is it's kind of like, succumbing and kind of saying like, it's going to be difficult to have humans put in structured data. So we're just going to use what we currently have. I'm curious, Sarah, is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I would say I usually recommend a two-prong approach. So first and foremost, when you have data that you want to use, and you say you need to be able to know what you're using it for. Once you know what you're using it for, you can start to measure the quality of the data. You need to have these things, purpose-driven and goal in place. If your data is not good enough, oftentimes for many applications, not all of them, you can use these technical language process tools to be able to really make use of all this historical data. But if it's not good enough, if it's fundamentally, it's still not going to be perfect, you can also start to implement best practices so your future data can actually improve in quality and be more amenable to what your purpose is. Best practices moving forward, what those look like may vary. It may not be, okay, let's start imposing perfect failure codes. If you haven't the right tools in place, it could be, let's start advocating for consistent vocabulary to describe failure so we can have analytics have an easier time parsing through it.
I'm curious, Sarah, is there something that you think a lot of reliability engineers get wrong when collecting data or analyzing data from out in the field? Is there like a common thing that you often see, or is it a little bit of everything?
One thing I commonly see is pessimism, maybe the wrong word, but there's definitely a lot of just maybe a wall, my data is no good, this is never going to work. And I think it has to do with a lot of reliability engineers. There's a lot of perfectionism and needing to let go of the fact that maybe it's not going to be perfect, but maybe it just needs to be good enough for my business objective. So I'll just come up with a simple example. MTBF, mean time between failure, is a beloved metric in the maintenance and reliability world. And it's very often misused. It's very often poorly understood, and it's very often oversimplified in what it means. But if you understand what it means and how you're using it, it can still be useful, even if very roughly estimated. It's the number of operating hours, which you can estimate however you want, divided by the number of failures over a period of time. And it gives you exactly that, a simple mean time between failure. Well, if you don't even know when the failures occurred, which is a common challenge in the CMMS, even just having some sort of indicator of these are most likely failures can really help if you're just trying to find, where do I have poor reliability? where can I go make improvements? It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not making predictions on this. I'm just trying to find some opportunity for finding where some maintenance costs can be improved. You can't harp on it being perfect. It's going to be good enough. And at the same time, too, when you start using analytics, you're going to start thinking, well, interestingly, they're consistent. If I put two different things into a machine, it's always going to return the same answer. And that is not true with people.
Yeah.
So there's actually definitely some benefits with, even if my answer is not perfect and I may need to let go of the fact it may not be functionally exactly what I want, but I can go through hundreds of thousands of data points real quickly and know that the output's consistent. There's something to be said for that. But it's a different way of thinking. So there's some challenges there.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because in a reliability engineer's eyes, their entire role is all about like evaluating risk. And if part of that risk is in the data quality, I could imagine makes people feel a lot of unease. But I think what I also hear from your point, Sarah, is it's never going to be a perfect 100% of the time. And there has to be a decision to be made.
I think something to add on that too is one thing with data analytics and technology, robots, machines, anything, and automation and people is that it's never going to be one replaces the other. It's how we work together, and there's lots of strength in what the machine can do. So when we're talking about evaluating risk, that's a very interesting point, because what you see traditionally for risk evaluations are these semi-quantitative approaches where you have a team of stakeholders that really agree on values. They're not injecting a lot of numerical values in these analyses. And it makes a lot of sense why they wouldn't be if you don't trust the data. It'd be interesting if you could think about how you could take these teams who are still know the equipment, still looking at this, but have data at their fingertips to help them make these assessments. How interesting would that be?
I mean, I think what you're touching on is like, we've really just scratched the surface of, what we could ultimately do with the data that you can capture within a facility, which I think is a really good segue into this next question around like, where do you think we are, Sarah, in this like technology curve? Do you feel like we're still at the very, very early stages of using data within physical plants? Do you feel like we've hit a peak of where we're at? Do you feel like, it's more widespread adoption time right now?
I think we're in the early days of the early innovators. And I think part of that is also, the maintenance and reliability world isn't necessarily the fastest moving world in terms of innovation. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just something to be mindful of. But it might be faster as the world's changing. There's going to be a workforce changeover in the next 10, 20 years. Some of these might contribute to faster trends than we've seen historically.
What has brought you the most satisfaction and joy as a data scientist within the maintenance reliability industry?
Anytime I've gotten to work on a customer problem where we've done an end-to-end use case with integrated analytics, but they just support the full end-to-end use case. And I've had a handful of those. We did one with operator logs as part of the compliance regulatory report. We had one with inspection analytics, with using inspections during a turnaround, which was really neat. We've done several with a data-driven asset strategy optimization type approaches, using the descriptions in order to get failure mode level of granularity to really make sure that the risks are being mitigated by the correct mitigating actions from the strategy. Getting those going and seeing other people be excited about the potentials is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so cool when you actually get to see your work get translated into like real business problems, like you were mentioning at the very beginning of this podcast. Sarah, we're running just up on time. Can you share with all of our listeners the different ways that they can connect with you, follow you on your journey, and continue learning more about what you're up to?
Okay, well, I guess probably the best, easiest place to go is I'm on LinkedIn. My name, Sarah Lukens. Another comment too, if you're just interested in the technical language processing, is that there's a community of interest, the TLPCOI, that you can find on the NIST website, which is, it's vendor agnostic. It's got academia, government, and vendors supporting a community to move this forward. So just joining that community may also be a good resource to contribute to moving forward.
All right, that sounds super interesting, and I will have to check it out myself. Thank you again, Sarah, for joining us, and thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to today's episode of the Maintenance Community Podcast episode. My name is Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Upkeep. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active. And lastly, you can find myself and Sarah in the Maintenance Community Slack group, where you can feel free to follow up, ask any questions, or also suggest any future topics for a next episode in the coming weeks. You can feel free to sign up at upkeep.org, and I hope to connect with everyone soon. Until next time, thank you again, Sarah.
Nice, thank you.